Hello, I am Francisco Nwamba and welcome to another one of our How to Buy series exclusive to Cars.co.za. Today we are discussing a vehicle that popularized the term VRPA. Yes, we are discussing the Golf 7 GTI, and interestingly, to me, this is a car that has aged very well, because if you happen to buy one of these cars brand new in 2013 and you had a baby at the same time, that baby would now be in grade 5. Yep, this car has been around for a long period of time. And I actually worked at VW as a sales executive when this car was launched. So I actually sold these vehicles, and at the time, there was a lot of hype around the Golf 7.
Cars.co.za. Power slide into the DMs. WhatsApp the dealer directly from our site. Less phone calls, less awkward.
The hype was indeed justified because many people feel that the Golf 7 was the best GTI ever made. Personally though, I still like a Golf 5 GTI because back in 2005, it was the first GTI to use a DSG gearbox, which means at that time I heard VRPA for the very first time, and ever since then it made such an impression on me that I've always loved that iteration. That being said, this is still a very stunning car. Today we have an actual Golf 7 GTI to touch and feel, and not just any GTI, but rather a Clubsport variant, which is one of my favorites. And this vehicle has been kindly loaned to us by Mtutuzela Mpiti, a friend of Cars.co.za. Interestingly, on our website, we have 317 GTIs for you to choose from, with the cheapest one being a 2013 model, which has got 139,000 Ks on the clock, and that is selling for just under 180,000 Rand. On the other end, we do have a Clubsport S, which is very rare, and that car only has 49,000 Ks on the clock, but that car is selling for 680,000 Rand. But if you ask me, that's actually quite a good deal because that is definitely a future collector's item. The first iteration of the Golf 7 GTI was built between 2013 and 2016, and then in late 2016, early 2017, we got the 7.5 variant, which was a facelift. Stock power figures in the standard GTI was 162 kilowatts, but then there was a performance variant which gave us an extra 7 kilowatts. In the Clubsport, however, we had 195 kilowatts and 370 Newton meters. And all that power was made accessible to the front wheels through a very smart limited slip diff that VW put standard in this car. To make things even more interesting, VW equipped an overboost function in this vehicle, which gave you 210 kilowatts for 10 seconds between 4th and 6th gear. This car, even in today's standards, is still very much a weapon. For the 7.5 variant, the GTI produced 169 kilowatts as standard, which is the same as the performance pack in the pre-facelift, and the halo model in the 7.5 range was the TCR, which produced 213 kilowatts and 380 Newton meters. So considering all this information, it makes perfect sense why many consumers would want to buy a pre-owned GTI. We need to remember that new car pricing is at an all-time high, so vehicles such as this do provide a lot of value, and there's a lot to choose from. But with a lot of choice comes lots of potential problems. But before we get into that, let's talk about the biggest elephant in the room, which is crime and safety. As we know, sadly in South Africa, anything that has the GTI badge on it means that it is a high-risk item. So before you even consider buying one of these cars, you must know that even just trying to insure this vehicle is going to be a costly exercise. Another factor to consider when buying a Golf GTI is the previous owner, because these vehicles are a modifier's dream. With a software here and a downpipe there, you can easily get your GTI to over 200 kilowatts like that. The problem though with that is that the manufacturer did not build the car to last all that long with some extra boost. So if you do buy yourself a modified or a previously modified GTI, you will most likely run into problems. So because the GTI is loved by boy racers, you need to make sure that the car that you're looking at has a full service history and it hasn't been involved in an accident, specifically a front smash, because more power, more speed, more drag racing can inevitably mean more accidents. So when you look at the vehicle that you are considering, pop the hood and have a look over here at these bolts. These bolts over here are good indicators to tell you if this car has been in a front smash or not. If these bolts look like they've been tampered with, that means these panels have come off and most likely this car has been panel beated. As we can see, this car, the bolts are well intact, and that tells us that Mr. Mpiti has taken very good care of his car. So how can you tell if your GTI was previously modified? With software, it's very difficult because once you put the car back to stock, you can't really tell if the car had software or not. With downpipe, on the other hand, it's also quite difficult because most people who put a catless downpipe in their car, when they sell the vehicle, they put the original part back on. Other times though, they do leave the catless downpipe on, and that actually happened to me when I was considering buying a Golf R. The dealership said that the car was completely stock, but when I started it up, I could hear that it was much louder and it had a nice tinny rattle to it, one that I knew quite well, and immediately I was like, nah fam, I'm walking away from the deal. So, what are the common issues to look out for when buying a Golf GTI? Well, here are 4 common problems that we have identified. So number 1 is the turbocharger. So if you are looking at GTIs within the 200 to 300,000 Rand price range, you would be looking at 2013 to 2015 models, and those early models were known to have turbo failure. How can you tell though if your turbo is failing in the car? Well, when you start the vehicle, if you see blue smoke coming out the exhaust, that's not a good thing because blue smoke generally means oil, and that means that your turbo could be on its way out. Another way to also check is if the turbo itself is making weird whistling sounds, or if it's shrieking, or it's quite loud. You'll know that something is wrong with the turbo because it won't sound like it is turboing, if that makes sense. Another very obvious thing to look out for is the check engine light. If that check engine light is on, please make sure to ask the dealer for a diagnostic report. In any case, don't be afraid to ask for that diagnostic report because that report will tell you a lot to know about the GTI that you are looking at. Number 2 is suspension noises. The Golf 7 GTI was known for having weird rattles and creaks in the suspension, specifically the rear suspension. I actually had a customer that had this very issue in her car. After she took delivery, she complained that she keeps on hearing this knocking sound, and the car went back and forth into the service department. But eventually, they sorted it out by replacing the top shock mounting in the rear suspension. So when you go for your test drive, listen carefully for any rattles and squeaks because that might indicate a suspension issue. Number 3 is the water pump and thermostat housing. Now, because that part is made out of plastic, it is prone to failure, and when that part fails, then the vehicle will have coolant leaks, and when there's coolant leaks, eventually the car will overheat. So it's very important to ask the dealership if that housing has been changed in the lifetime of the vehicle that you are considering. Number 4. Golf 7 GTIs are known over time for rattling and squeaking, specifically the sunroof. So what I would advise a person to do is switch on the vehicle and test the sunroof. Do it as many times as you'd like because it's very important to make sure that that sunroof works very well. We need to remember that 99% of these Golf 7 GTIs are going to come with this panoramic sunroof, unless you found yourself a cop spec GTI somewhere. But it's important that this part works very well. Sitting inside the Golf 7, I am quite impressed by the build quality that VW used when making this car. But what I do really like about this vehicle is the fact that I've got buttons to press and knobs to turn up and down. Because, as we know, in the Golf 8, everything is controlled by that touchscreen infotainment system. And quite frankly, I don't like it whatsoever. Instead, give me buttons and buttons that last for a long time, and I'm a happy camper. Of course, with cars that are equipped with leather, we always need to check the bolsters. And in this car, I'm impressed to see that the bolsters are still in good nick, barring the one here on the driver's seat, which is generally the one that tends to go. Overall, however, though, this cabin is still in very good shape. To make your buying experience even easier, we've included some common parts pricing from both VW and third-party retailers. So pause the video now. Overall, the Golf 7 GTI can make for a lovely pre-owned purchase, but it is important to do your research and make sure that you find a vehicle that hasn't been messed with from a modifications perspective and a vehicle that has got a full service history. Until next time, happy shopping and happy
Cars.co.za. Are you busy trying to decide between 2 cars, 3 cars, 4 cars, 5 cars, 6 cars, and getting absolutely lost in all of the specs and all of the different pricing? Well, we have an excellent compare tool on our main website and in our app for you to use. It's very detailed, it's very slick and quick and efficient, and I highly recommend it. I use it all the time when I'm doing research for our car shoots. So check it out. We'll put the link in the description below and tell us what you think. Tell us if it helped you out.